let's talk about the pros and cons of being in business. So if you're making the transition between employee land and self-employment land or business, I recognize sometimes that can be a big cavern to leap. There's a lot of things to think about. I guess the upsides are when you are an employee, you have somebody telling you when to come in, what to do, how to do it, when to do it, where to do it, when to leave, and so on. And typically, when you're an employee, you're going to report to one person. The upside of being an employee, of course, is you get a regular, steady paycheck. It's predictable. And that's what so many people like is, you may not always have the upsides, but you have predictability. Some of the downsides of being an employee are you may feel like you don't have a lot of control over, what customers that you deal with, the way that you do business. For example, you may wish that you did marketing or business development for certain types of customers that may not be part of where your company wants to go. And when you're an employee, you may not have much say in these things, so that can be a little bit frustrating. Also, as an employee, you might feel like you're helping to build someone else's wealth as compared to thinking about your return on investment of your own time. Oh, we could go on and on about the upsides and the downsides of being an employee. I'm sure if you've been an employee, you know it. Now, let's think for a second about, how things may be different when you go to that land of self-employment or business. I guess in your mind, you think about how great it would be. You can just get up whenever you want. You can work whenever you want. You can work with who you want to. You're going to be your own boss. The money will just come rolling in. Just imagine all that you could make. These things are pretty common thoughts when you're in employee land, thinking about making that transition. And then reality sets in. It sets in because you start to think about, when I was an employee, customers would come to me and I would take care of those customers. Now that I'm in the land of self-employment or business, I have to find a way to get customers, number one. Number two, I have to decide how I'm going to deal with those customers. Now, when you make the shift to self-employment, you might initially be thinking, I am going to be my own boss. This is going to be great. I can wake up when I want, do what I want, when I want, how I want, be done when I want. It's going to be a great life. But sometimes reality sets in maybe a few days, a few weeks, or a few months in, because you go from having one boss to thinking you're going to be your own boss. But in reality, now you have a lot of bosses. You have bosses ranging from the bank, you have your employees, you have the standards for the field that you work in, you have the government, in both the federal government and the state government, and sometimes local government. Whew, it's a lot right there. We could keep going. Of course, naturally, you also have your customers. Your customers indirectly are your boss anyway, whether you're an employee or whether you're self-employed. But when you're self-employed, your customers really only have one person to talk to. And you know who that is? That is you. So you go from having one boss to having multiple, hundreds of bosses, potentially. And this is something that is just a little bit different about the world of self-employment and business. Not everybody can stomach this. It's not for everyone. But if you can stomach it and you can get past all that and learn how to be a juggler, well, I have good news for you. Success could be in your future. The people that are the most successful in the land of self-employment or business are the ones that do get out of bed every day and work it like a job. Business is not going to come to you. You do have to sacrifice. If you want to get ahead in life, you have to sacrifice. What are you willing to sacrifice to be successful? You may want to think about that. Your success will be directly correlated to what you sacrifice. There's a ton of things that you got to think about too when you are making that transition. It's everything from what is your product or your service going to be? Are you going to have a storefront? Are you going to do e-commerce? Are you going to be one man, one truck, or one woman, one truck? Or are you going to have people working for you? Are you considering some kind of remote work, some kind of e-gig self-employment? All of those are options. There's other things that you want to think about too, like do you need a storefront? Do you need to rent space, which becomes another boss? Do you need a business vehicle? How about your legal structure? And then, do you need capital? Do you need a lender? Do you need a banker? Along the lines of your legal structure, there are a lot of things to think about. I'm just going to be honest, and this is where some advice up front can make all the difference. On the legal structure side, you have things that if you are concerned about liability, and usually you would be concerned about liability for things that you cannot control. You obviously can control your product or service, and if you know what you're doing and you're competent, you don't really have to worry about that as much. But what you cannot control is when the public is coming in and out of your place. And if the public is coming in and out of your place, you have just a little bit more risk than the average person. And that's when you may want some legal protection on the entity side. You could choose from structures like a corporation or an LLC, or you could go unincorporated, or you could have a limited partnership. These are just an example of some of the ways you could be structured, and each of them come with their own benefits in terms of liability protection or not. It's something to talk about with your attorney. Now keep in mind, when I say talk about the legal protection with your attorney, attorneys typically have very incredibly little tax knowledge. So I would not go to my attorney and ask for tax advice. I wouldn't do it. You need a tax professional. You need a CPA or an enrolled agent, because they're going to know more about this particular entity can be operated this way, this way, this way, this way, or this way for tax purposes. And if it's going to operate one of these ways, this is what it should look like. This is what it should smell like. This is what it should sound like. And they can help you get all that flowing. And then you can take that to your attorney and say, here's the taxation I would like. Help me establish the structure to protect me for the amount of liability risk that I'm willing to accept, in concert with my accountant. When you do that, when you get the horse in front of the cart, as they say, that's when things can get a little bit better. So what does all this mean? It does mean that when you're getting started, there's so many things to attend to, but a little bit of investment of time and money on the front end with respect to education and advice, that can make all the difference. You need a professional relationship with someone you can trust. I really believe it. And I used to say someone local, although in today's economy, local can be oversold. You just need a lawyer that understands you and your situation, who is attentive and responsive, and you need an accountant that understands the tax law and the number of different ways you can be organized and where your business is headed. Also an accountant that speaks English so that they can transfer that knowledge to you. Or this is one of the reasons that I established my training course, which is to help business people understand the landscape, the dimensions, and the ways that you could operate. With that knowledge, you could very well have a conversation with the accountant of your choice, knowing full well what you want, and then that accountant could help you communicate to your attorney how you would like to structure yourself. Starting out with the right structure is going to make all the difference between success and frustration. I've seen it 1,000 times if I've seen it once. So today we talked about, dimensions of being an employee versus being self-employed, being a business owner. We talked about some of the upsides and some of the downsides of each. We talked about things to think about if you're considering making that transition. I would just like to thank you for taking the time to listen to me today, your favorite CPA. I know watching a long video like this is, time out of your day. I'm always trying to deliver something valuable to you, and it does make me feel really good about the work I'm doing if I get some likes, some follows, and some shares. So if you know anybody that is really on the fence and they're trying to consider, should I stay an employee or should I go self-employed? What would that look like? share my videos, share my social profile, share my link tree. If you would like to join me on my mission of educating business people and creating a community where we can better ourselves in the world of taxes and business, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. In closing, check out my other socials and check out my link tree. They're linked in my profile and also in the description below. Thanks again, guys, and we'll see you next time.